On this vote, the ayes are 218, the nays are 211, with one answering present. The resolution is adopted.
On this vote, the yeas are 214 and the nays are 213. The motion is adopted.
Is anyone surprised that I am being targeted? Is anyone surprised that I am somehow deemed unworthy to speak about American foreign policy? Or that they see me as a powerful voice that needs to be silenced? Frankly, it is expected, because when you push power, power pushes back. Representation matters. Continuing to expand our ideas of who is American and who can partake in the American experiment is a good thing. I am an American who was sent here, by her constituents to represent them in Congress.
The moment the final tally appeared on the board, the atmosphere inside the House chamber shifted instantly. On this vote, the yeas are 218, the nays are 211. A resolution that had divided lawmakers for weeks had just passed. And before the Speaker could even move to the next order of business, the reaction from the chamber told the entire story. Cheers broke out from one side of the aisle, while the other side sat in visible frustration. Moments later, another vote followed, even closer. On this vote, the yeas are 214 and the nays are 213. Just a single vote separated victory from defeat. The motion was adopted. The chamber erupted again, and what had already been a tense debate suddenly turned into one of the most emotionally charged moments on the House floor. For supporters of the resolution, it was a long-awaited moment of accountability. For critics, it represented something far more troubling, what they believed was a politically motivated effort to punish a member of Congress. And right at the center of that storm stood Representative Ilhan Omar. As the noise in the chamber settled, Omar stepped forward to respond. Instead of focusing on the vote itself, she immediately framed the moment in broader terms. "Is anyone surprised that I am being targeted?" she asked. Her words hung in the chamber for a moment. She continued, questioning whether anyone was surprised that she was being treated as if she were unworthy to speak about American foreign policy. The implication was clear. This wasn't simply about committee assignments or controversial remarks. In her view, it was about something deeper. Omar argued that her voice had become powerful enough that certain people wanted it silenced. And she described the situation as something she had expected all along. Because, as she put it, when you challenge power, power pushes back. She reminded the chamber that she was an American, and that she had been sent there by her constituents to represent them in Congress. To her supporters, it was a powerful statement about representation and democratic legitimacy. But to many of her critics in the room, that framing completely missed the central issue that had brought them to that vote in the first place. And as the debate continued, it became clear that several lawmakers were ready to push back, forcefully.
Mr. Speaker, and to use that logic, well then all those people should have just said sorry and we'd move on, right? But no, we don't do that. And let me tell you, I take a little bit of offense to what the hell is wrong with me. I'll tell you, there's nothing wrong with me. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Again, I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm going to hold the Constitution, and it's very simple. We really shouldn't even have this debate. If you break the law and you follow due process, there are consequences to your actions, even if you say sorry. So we can try all of the diversion tactics that we would like. It doesn't change the fact that someone broke the law and that someone should be held accountable. It is disappointing, Mr. Speaker, that their own party can't hold them accountable, that they have such hypocrisy. So with that, I yield 2 minutes to my friend from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've heard from my colleagues the reasons why the Representative Omar should be removed from this committee, but I feel like all the reasons have not just yet been stated, which is why I rise to add for the record. We've heard about the comments that were made regarding anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli views, but I rise to add to the record that as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I've sat there and heard the representative actually spew anti-American rhetoric as well. I've been in that committee room where the representative equates Israel and the United States to Hamas and the Taliban. Absolutely unacceptable for a member of that committee. I've also heard the representative equate that it is the United States' fault that there is turmoil in Venezuela, that is not because of the oppressive socialist and communism that has spread throughout Central and South America and Venezuela at the hands of the Maduro and Hugo Chavez regimes. That is unacceptable. And as a New York representative, to hear the representative belittle, to try to diminish the worst terrorist attack on United States soil on September 11, 2001, as some people did something, that is unacceptable as well. And I hold the same standard for this side of the aisle that I do the other, because when another colleague on my side said something about 9/11, I also voted to have her removed from the Education Committee because I thought that was inappropriate. So I'm being consistent here, and I hope my colleagues will do the same to show that this is about consistency and accountability, because we should not have an individual with those views on the committee that is tasked with representing our country and our
Omar's defense relied on a theme that has appeared repeatedly throughout modern political conflicts in Washington: representation. Standing on the House floor, she emphasized that expanding the definition of who gets to participate in the American experiment is not only important, but necessary. It was a message designed to resonate far beyond the chamber itself. By tying the controversy to identity, representation, and democratic participation, Omar reframed the debate as something larger than a dispute over statements or committee roles. But as powerful as that argument was rhetorically, it immediately ran into resistance from lawmakers who believed the debate had nothing to do with representation at all. Their argument was much simpler. This wasn't about who Omar was. It was about what she had said. Critics pointed to a series of past remarks that had generated controversy, statements that they believed were inappropriate for a member serving on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, one of the most sensitive and strategically important committees in Congress. The committee deals directly with international diplomacy, national security partnerships, and America's relationships with allies and adversaries around the world. For lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who supported the resolution, the question wasn't symbolic. It was institutional. They argued that membership on that committee carries a responsibility to speak about U.S. allies, adversaries, and national tragedies with extreme care. And that's where the tension in the chamber began to escalate. Because while Omar framed the moment as a struggle over representation and political targeting, her critics framed it as something entirely different. To them, it was about standards. And that's when Representative Nicole Malliotakis stepped forward to make that case directly. Omar's deef when Representative Nicole Malliotakis took the floor, the debate shifted from political narrative to direct accountability. Speaking calmly but firmly, the New York lawmaker addressed what she believed had been missing from the discussion up to that point. She acknowledged that many of the reasons for removing Omar from the committee had already been discussed, particularly concerns about statements viewed as anti-Semitic or hostile toward Israel. But Malliotakis said there was another issue that needed to be placed on the record. In her experience sitting in the same committee room, she said she had heard statements from Omar that she considered deeply troubling not just toward U.S. allies, but toward the United States itself. Specifically, she pointed to moments where Omar had drawn comparisons between the United States, Israel, and groups like Hamas and the Taliban. For Malliotakis, that kind of rhetoric crossed a line that members of the Foreign Affairs Committee simply could not afford to cross. Because, in her view, the committee is responsible for representing America's interests to the world. And when foreign governments, diplomats, and international partners look at who sits on that committee, they see representatives of the United States itself. She also brought up another moment that had sparked significant backlash in the past: Omar's controversial phrasing when referring to the September 11th terrorist attacks as, "Some people did something." For Malliotakis, a New York representative whose state experienced the attack firsthand, that remark carried particular emotional weight. But perhaps the most striking part of her argument was the standard she said she applied to everyone. She reminded the chamber that she had previously supported disciplinary action against a member of her own party who made controversial comments about 9/11. In other words, she argued that her position was not partisan. It was consistent. And that consistency, she said, was the point. Because if Congress expects accountability from others, from foreign governments, from public figures, from institutions, it must first enforce those standards within its own ranks. And according to Malliotakis, that is exactly what the House had just done. NSE relied on a theme that has appeared repeatedly throughout modern political conflicts in Washington: representation. Standing on the House floor, she emphasized that expanding the definition of who gets to participate in the American experiment is not only important, but necessary. It was a message designed to resonate far beyond the chamber itself. By tying the controversy to identity, representation, and democratic participation, Omar reframed the debate as something larger than a dispute over statements or committee roles. But as powerful as that argument was rhetorically, it immediately ran into resistance from lawmakers who believed the debate had nothing to do with representation at all. Their argument was much simpler. This wasn't about who Omar was. It was about what she had said. Critics pointed to a series of past remarks that had generated controversy, statements that they believed were inappropriate for a member serving on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, one of the most sensitive and strategically important committees in Congress. The committee deals directly with international diplomacy, national security partnerships, and America's relationships with allies and adversaries around the world. For lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who supported the resolution, the question wasn't symbolic. It was institutional. They argued that membership on that committee carries a responsibility to speak about U.S. allies, adversaries, and national tragedies with extreme care. And that's where the tension in the chamber began to escalate. Because while Omar framed the moment as a struggle over representation and political targeting, her critics framed it as something entirely different. To them, it was about standards. And that's when Representative Nicole Malliotakis stepped forward to make that case directly.